Well, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. And, it's needle felting is kind of fun to do. And it is theoretically a relaxing, kind of thing that you can do to get, because you're stabbing with a needle. And it's the kind of thing that you can do that will get all of your aggressions out, which is very, very nice. It's quite pleasant. On the other hand, it can be stressful too. What I'm gonna do today is I'm going to be doing a landscape, which is a little different than the kind of things that I normally do. And I'm gonna be doing this landscape, but I'm also gonna be using this as a reference picture. So, I have one of the things that I was reading about are mistakes that beginning felters make. One of them is not using a reference picture. So you should use some sort of a reference, whether or not it's a 3D project or whether or not it's a flat surface project or what have you. You can be quite accurate with your landscaping. You can be very accurate or fanciful with 3D or and you can be abstract with both of them. I wanted to, before we get started, I do want to point out that there are different kinds of wool and there are different kinds of sheep. There's a Perindale? Dale? Perindale.
Perindale, yeah.
Yeah, which I use a lot of. I love it. Primarily because it's really sticky. And the one thing about wool is that it has these fibers. And what you're doing when you're messing with these fibers is you're combining them together. You're knitting them together, basically, with a needle. My needle just got drifted over here. And you have these needles, they're different sizes. What's strange about these needles is that the larger the size, the actual smaller the needle. So a needle that is what we call 44, 42, 40s, those are very, very fine needles. 36s, 38s are not so fine. They're pretty tough. They're your workhorses. And so when you're felting, you're taking this felt or this wool and you're stabbing it into the fabric like so and combining it together. And so at any rate, that's what this
What
is.
about the needles makes the fibers lock in?
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you very much for asking that question. This is a premier felter here.
She is.
And she's very knowledgeable. At any rate, she has questions. The fibers have barbs and the needles have barbs. And so the barbs are knitting these things together. That answer it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Now I'm gonna pass out some different kinds of wools so that you can take a look at them. This is called a core wool. I'm gonna just take it and feel it. Core wool is used primarily as something that you can create, like this bird here. The bird was created with core wool, and then there was a fiber, a colored wool that was put over the top of it. And that way you're conserving the cost, because these things, these colored wools cost more. So you're preserving that, and that way you can, you can play with the core, and then you can play with your outside coloring, because you're gonna be adding the color to it. There are two types of wool, basically, that I use. One of them is called a bat, which is what this is. And the bats are just, when they're manufactured, you take the wool from the sheep, they've cleaned it, and they've carded it, and then they layer it on top of one another in all sorts of directions. So you can see, like with this, it's all layered. You can see how thin that is. And so they're put into these layers. There's several layers right here. On the other hand, there's this roving. And the roving, on the other hand, it's wool that goes in one direction. It's manufactured in one direction. And people like to use roving for the top of their pieces. There are a lot of people that like to use roving, especially for landscaping. So you can see the difference between the two of them. Then there
May I interject?
sure.
I'm her daughter, by the way, and I'm also a needle felter. So think of bat as like your field, okay? It's gonna do a really good job of doing full coverage, okay? And think of roving as your fine line needlework. It lets you do really fine lines and draw those lines out and really get that detail in there. So that's another way to use the differences of using the fiber to help you accomplish your goal.
Yeah. The next thing, I mentioned that there were several different kinds of sheep. That fiber, the bat, is probably like a Perendale. This, on the other hand, could be all sorts of. You guys can help me out here on the kind of fleece that ends up being a curly lock. This is what's called a curly lock.
Most of the time, those are mohair from the mohair goat.
Mohair?
And so these are used for like beards, or else you can use them to put, hair on critters. I like to use them for eyeballs. But at any rate, so there's these, and they come in different types. Some of them are very long and kind of straight. Others are very kinky, and they dye really, really well. So you can have different colors. Some of my favorites are these white ones that I bought a couple of years ago, a fleece, and it was full of curly locks, and I'm still going through it. It's a huge amount. Okay, then you have, this is not really gonna, unfortunately, this is gonna work, but this is felt. You can felt onto it as long as it's like as much percentage of wool as you can get. So you want it to be wool, not rayon or polyester or a mix. So sometimes what they do, or what you can use, is you can use what's called a pre-felt. Here's a sample of that, which is a manufactured piece of wool that's been already partly felted. You can also make your own. You have wet felting and you have dry felting. And wet felting can be quite extensive. You're gonna be spending many hours making wet felt. This is the kind of stuff that you're gonna find that people use for clothing, for hats, handbags, things such as that. And if you really, really want to wet felt, what you can do is you're rolling it and you're combining it and you're letting the action of rolling it, felt it together. I do what I call quick felting, which means that I'm going in and I'm gonna stab my felt together. And then what I'll do is I'm gonna put it in some hot water, really hot water, and I let it steep in there for a little bit. And then what I'll do is I'll usually iron it. Now, I'll get these things, which I use for clothing, and there's a couple of little gnomes back there that I've used my own little, what I call quick felt for these gnomes. And that's basically, I mean, instead of going back and forth and letting it felt and felt and felt, I just go ahead and quickly felt it. It's cheating, but I love doing it. At any rate, it works that way. Okay, so when you start with landscaping or felting and painting in a landscape, you're painting just like you would a picture. You're gonna be doing, you choose your reference picture or whatever that you're going to choose to work with, and you're gonna make your choices as far as color is concerned. You're gonna decide where you're going to put it. You know, in this situation, I'm going to frame it in one of these shadow boxes. So I brought a shadow box. I have my little frame because I'm gonna frame it, and I measured it here to show that it's, to know what my edges are going to be so I don't go way past them. And then I've also picked my colors. And in this particular picture, we have the oranges, and we have some blues, we have some beiges, and then we have some other blues. And I like to see this as a picture of maybe some mountains, you know, and here's a sunrise, and here's these mountains with maybe a stream going through, and then there might be a little field or so, and then there might be some more water, things like that. It's just, I mean, even though it's an abstract, which is my favorite, it's still, it's got some definition to it. So when you do felting, you're gonna wanna do the backgrounds and block out those backgrounds, and then you can felt over them. So I've chosen these colors for this part up here, and then I've gone into, let's see here's some of the black and these greens here, and then I've done some beiges here, and some more blues and the like. Okay, so that's where I'm at. I went ahead and I drew on my felt, just basically general shapes of what I want to concentrate on. Now, I can do this with one needle, which is going to take me a bit of time. Stab, stab, stab. Or I've got multi-needle tools. There are 3 needles in here. And then there's also another multi-needle tool here. There are 3 needles in this one. You can get multi-needle tools that are like 6, 7 needles, but you better be watching where your fingers are. The other day, for the very first time,
She did a good one.
I actually stabbed my thumb and broke the needle in my thumb.
It was a good one.
Now, that's a rare circumstance, but you get you just don't pay attention, and then you get a needle in your finger. It isn't that painful, not really, but it is a surprise. And when you do the smaller things, it's quite easy to do. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to start looking at my colors and laying them along here. One thing that's lovely about felt and wool is that it's quite forgiving. And you can easily just tear it off, start over again. If you don't like it, you can create different things entirely. So it's, and I'm using my multi-needle tool here primarily because, for time's sake, and it gets the job done. Now, when you're working with needles, which is one of the reasons why I break my needles and why Tina, I don't think, has ever broken a needle, and why Shannon, who seldom breaks needles as well, is that they act like the machine that these needles were made for. Originally, these needles were made for machines that are used to actually make, like your knitted products. And so somebody got the bright idea in the 70s or so that what they would do, is they would just use a single needle from that machine and see whether or not they could create different pieces of art. And that's how they did it. So then, and that's how the art of needle felting actually came about, this type of needle felting. There are other, needle felting and wool making has been around for some long little while. So it's not just, people made tents with it. Folks were doing things with making clothing and things such as that.
You can do this with any animal fiber,
You can.
by the way. So this could be yak, it could be llama, it could be cat or dog hair, it could be even silk. The struggle is you're gonna wanna mix it with another fiber that is gonna allow it to grab and hold in. So if you are using another animal fiber, you can mix it with the wool and still add it in and create your piece.
What about alpaca wool?
Any animal fiber. Yep.
Even Probably human hair, I imagine.
Yep, you can, if you have enough of it. We went on a trip and I picked up some bison hair, and it will felt, absolutely.
When we were down in Dixon, there was a woman that had a yak,
Mm-hmm.
and she brought in the yak hair, which she said was really kind of hard to deal with, but nonetheless, it was something that she that was fun to work with. Once you, I mean, her problem was washing it. She didn't like to wash it. So your fiber's gonna stick to the back of your piece. You see like this? And from time to time, you're gonna wanna peel that piece off from your felting surface. And you're always gonna wanna have a felting surface, no matter what. You know, there are different kinds of felting surfaces. Some of them are just foam. They got all kinds of felting surfaces here today. And some of them are like this. This is a wool pad.
Does this have a name?
It's wool. It's
It's from Felted Sky,
felted sky, yeah.
and so it's just layers and layers and layers of wool that have been felted together to give you a pad.
Are they expensive?
That
No,
one's about
not really.
45.
They're something like around, they can be anywhere from, like, you can use packing material,
Yep.
you know, that is foam packing material. Any kind of upholstery, foam.
I guess you only use it once though.
Oh, no, you're using,
we use a lot
I can't tell you how many times I've used this.
Well, no, I mean the packing
The
material.
packing material.
No, you can use that over and over.
It's to protect everything underneath, right? That's what it's
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, exactly. Let me see.
It also protects the needle from breaking
Right.
because it's not hitting a hard surface. Anytime, I mean, if you happen to have some detritus or debris in your wool, you want to pick that out, because if you hit that with your needle, you might possibly break your needle.
Well,
This is great for mental health. You can picture your favorite or not so favorite item and just put in all of your love.
Or
The-
so.
Now, you don't also, you notice how deep she is stabbing with that needle. She's not taking it all the way in. You just need to stab deep enough to be able to connect that fabric through your backing.
Hey. Ah,
What do you need?
oh, I've got to find some glue, some other kind of glue. I think this will probably do. I ran into this lady in Las Cruces when I was there this last winter. And the stuff the products that she makes is just fantastic. It's,
You might throw in there.
okay, thank you. What she does is she mixes different fibers into a bat you know, like what I showed you with this black bat.
Mhm.
So there are these different fibers that are throughout the wool that she sells as a bat. It's like, oh God, that's so gorgeous. At any rate, it has what's called, there's some silk in here, there's some different colors, there's some Angelina, the Angelina's the sparkle, you know, and she just combines all of this together to create those bats. And so it's just so wonderful. And then also she does a lot of hand dyeing, which I love too. Her dyeing is just gorgeous. And then also she creates these things which she does spinning. And so she does a core spun yarn, which is like this. And it's thick and thin, and it comes with there's actually a core that comes through it, or that's in the middle of it. And then as she's spinning it, there's a string of sorts that gets strung around it that hold the thing together. And it's really, I've deconstructed a lot of it, but here's an example. This is some of it. Look at how textural this is. You know, I mean, I love the texture.
Is it expensive when you buy wool?
It isn't really that expensive considering how much you
Much
get.
time, yeah.
You know, and you get like 450 yards or something like that. I mean, or 45 yards. It's a lot. There's, you know, when you think of how much you're actually going to be using,
Right.
45 yards is a lot.
Yeah.
You know? And for maybe $25, $30, $35.
That's good.
Something like that. You know, I buy these things. I am a crow. There's no doubt about it. I love sparkle. And so anytime I see something that sparkles, I just love it. And Dee Dee was she was like, oh my God. And she delivered. Hand delivered, which was really nice because she was right there in Las Cruces. Okay, so you can see I blocked this out. It's kind of ugly, but I kind of have the idea of where my sun is going to go, where my textures are going to go, what I'm going to be blending in, and things such as that. So bear with me. All right, so we got this. This is one of the bats that she did as well. It's got these beautiful little colors and sparkles and things like that in it. We're gonna start out with our sun. And then I deconstructed some of the core wool or core yarn that she made. And then we have some purple here. This is one of my favorite things too. As I said, I like texture and I like sparkle. This is a thick and thin, what's called a thick and thin. And in as much as when it's spun, some of it is very thick and some of it is very thin. It works really well when I do my eyeballs. So, okay, let's get on with this. We're good, time-wise, I think. After this, what we're going to be doing is, after the potluck, is I'm offering a workshop, which is a free workshop, and it's on how to make eyeballs. So you can you can take your own eyeball home if you want it. If you don't, that's fine. Eyeballs are one of my top sellers. I call them desk buddies. And, so my desk buddies are there to watch out for you, for your stuff. You can tell it all your secrets, you can do all sorts of things with it. They don't have any ears, so they can't hear you. They don't have any mouths, so they can't tell those secrets that they might have heard, and they always look out for you. So, we're kind of doing this a little bit more defined, and I'm having a struggle with these needles, this needle, and we'll see whether or not this one works better. Trying to put my sun in and doing a little bit more detail here rather than the rubbing in.
So if you notice, when she's using the single needle, she has a lot more control of where the fiber is gonna connect. Where when you have a 2 or a 3, you've got a gap between those needles as they're going down. So you're gonna get the fiber pushed a little bit further and in. It's not gonna be close right next to each other. You have to almost sometimes do more work when you're doing the fine stuff.
You do, that's true. One of the other things is, as I go through this too, so I'm gonna have to come back up here and add a little bit of color. Here's some, this is a nice little fiber that I'm gonna add in here. And like painting, you kind of have to play with it a little bit, see whether or not what works for you.
If she doesn't like that color and she wants a color in between the two, you can hand mix those two fibers together to create a new color, just like you would with paint.
Mm-hmm.
Another way to do that is to do it through very, very, very thin layers of the wool and alternating, and again doing that mix like you would with watercolor or with acrylics.
To add a little bit. Now, you don't have to do large amounts to have a pretty good effect. You know, like you can just take a wisp like this and just put it over the top and just smooth it in and add it in. Add some colors here. From my sparkly stuff.
You can buy Angelina on its own. You can buy silk on its own. Sari fabric is another fiber that you'll find. The thing about those is they typically have been descaled, or they super
never had a
washed,
scale.
or never had a scale. So like with the Angelina, in order for that to stay attached, again, you have to mix that with wool. So it's actually the wool that is holding this extra fiber down and into your piece. But you could mix in all sorts of different kinds of fibers if you wanted to. It doesn't need to be, I mean, it could be ribbons, it could be, I've seen flowers wrapped into it, embroidery thread. What else have you seen in there, Tina?
What?
Into unique fibers that have been wrapped in that are unusual.
Pretty much all the ones you mentioned.
Yeah.
Like grass.
I have seen some grass. Again, you have to be careful about
Yeah.
the debris and not hitting it with your needle.
Mhm.
But one of the fibers that I recently worked with is a thick and thin, but it actually had flowers sewn into it. And so you could still work around it, but it still had the flowers in it.
I've seen it with flax too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some of those
Like
tougher
this.
grasses that you can have.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, like,
So like that had the flowers sewn on it.
oh,
On the fiber, and it has the sari fabric in it that was wrapped up.
That's pretty expensive.
I'll show this around.
yeah.
No, it's
No.
the same kind of fiber as the wrapped fibers, just as they're spinning it, they just add things onto it. I threw the sparkles on.
They're cute.
Yeah, the sparkles are kind of fun to do. Okay, so we've kind of
I'm just letting
done the top part here.
somebody needs to be
Might come back to it, and eventually what we would want to do is probably, just take a little bit of time. You can noodle, it's one of those felting terms, noodling, your piece so that you can smooth it out. And basically you're just pecking it, just getting it so that it's smooth. But I'm gonna not do that right now, because we don't have a whole lot of time. Okay, so let's call that one, that part of it, done. Roll that away.
Trying to figure it
And, let me see, what are we gonna do next? We've got this, again, here's some, thick and thin, that I got from Living Felt. One of the things that when you're adding fiber to a piece is that you want to make sure, here it is, that it's wool. If you try and add other things that are not, that isn't wool, it's just going to give you all kinds of grief, and you'll be kind of upset by it. So as long as you're dealing with fiber that's wool, whether or not it's this kind of fiber, or if it's, this is, right here, this was just a clump of curly locks that got dyed, and then it was just this clump, but it's pretty, and I like to use it. I'll use just about anything, and I am just a pack rat when it comes down to it. I keep all sorts of things, and just as I said, I'm a pack rat. So what we're going to do, because you never know when you're gonna be able to use it. I mean, I've got that attitude, you know, that you have, that people have from the Depression.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never know when I'm gonna be able to use this. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm putting some different fibers around in here and just sort of deciding what looks good and how I wanna put them. This particular piece is appealing to me because it is so textural. And there are things that you can, you know, that you're adding to it that's really pretty. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add just a little bits of wisp to kind of enhance this color and take away all of that dark. Which you could get really lost in. Let's see. One of the things that I drive Shannon crazy with is I love to just cut things wherever I find them.
Wherever. Doesn't matter if it's the end or not.
No. So I'm adding some movement in here, putting a little bit of, here's an example. I like that. And I'm going to add a little bit of that in here. And if you were to try to do this with anything like, you know, acrylic yarn, it would absolutely do you no good whatsoever. It would just be, you'd be so frustrated. Okay. So we're kind of done with that one for a while. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do some of this. This is gonna be, this is a beautiful piece of what I call the coarse spun yarn. And it's just so textural. Because it blends in really quite well with my background, I can add it in and it really makes a big difference. Doesn't really want to go in there. Sometimes you have to manhandle it.
Try not to use your needle to move your fibers. You do want to use your fingers, or if you need something to hold it in a certain place, maybe a skewer or a toothpick. When you use your needle to move your fibers, you again run more of a risk of breaking that needle because you're tugging on it and giving it stress.
questions?
Everybody's so silent. Do you wanna do it? So make sure you, if you are interested in doing this, please make sure you stay around so that you can be a part of our take and make that we're doing after the demo and the potluck.
On the screen, it looks like a little valley with like little lights from the village or something.
Yeah.
The sparkles.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do is to take a photograph of my composition, because when you're sitting there looking at it, it is really hard to tell what needs to change or how it's looking.
Okay. So far?
That's neat.
Can you just feel the texture? You know? That's what
I want to make a coat.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Sew them all together.
One of the things that they used to do years ago, and I don't know that they're doing it at all anymore, is they would knit, you know, big, like on a broomstick knit, you know, thing, and they would knit these big, giant pieces of like a sweater that was like 10 times bigger than you wanted. And then they put it in a very hot washing machine and shrink it down to the point where you could actually, it was a real sweater. That's the way they used to do wet felting over the years. And at any rate, it's changed. There's so many different ways in which people are doing things. They're all unique, different.
I know the Waldorf School does a lot of felting, and especially around Christmas time when they have their annual sales of their handiwork. It's just astounding, the details that they get. And what they do a lot of is the soap, using soap, and
Wet felting.
so it's wet, and
Right.
they mold it that way. I'm not exactly sure how the process works, but they get some astounding details.
Oh, yeah.
And some Santa Clauses that just blow you away.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Philip, if you want to play with wet felt, come over and let's play.
Well, I never did it.
Well,
It was a real treat to watch.
it would be. I did it a little bit. And of course, it's one of those things where, you know, for me,
He's being okay.
in order for me to do something, I've always got to buy everything that goes with it. So I bought all of the wet felting equipment, played with it a time or two, and decided this is just not for me.
Mhm.
I don't like it. It's just too time consuming. And it's too hard. But then again, you know, when you're making little gnomes or whatever, the little critters that I make, it doesn't matter if I'm making it for a permanent kind of thing. It just doesn't matter.
So from a needle felting point of view, the other reason why cutting fibers, even though she's using threads like what she's using, it's better for her to be able to cut the fibers there. But if she were using roving or bat, and she were to cut that with scissors, the issue is you're cutting off all of the little spines and the little parts that will allow that wool to connect and knot. So you would be left with little pieces stuck up unless you really spend a lot of time poking that down or stabbing that down. So if you can try to leave a natural end to your animal fiber, so that that natural end will felt down more securely and easier.
A blendable edge.
And a blendable edge, exactly. Because it'll also keep you from having those really sharp lines of color differentiation. Kind of fade it in like you would watercolors. I say watercolors, having no knowledge of how to watercolor.
It's like lettuce, you tear it, don't chop it.
Yeah, that's a great food analogy.
That's what we're talking
Well, Beverly is a rebel.
I'm a rebel?
She is. She
But it depends on what you're looking for. If you want, like some people that are doing animals, they use their scissors to kind of shorten the hairs and sculpt the faces and the body. So
Especially
it just depends.
with like pet portraits.
Because I was a no scissor person in the beginning for a long time, but it does have its.
Merits.
Oh, yeah. Like when I did this bird, one of the ways in which this fur kind of, it looks kind of like feathers. At any rate, what you have to do there is you're putting in your wool in long pieces, and then you're trimming it with your scissors to make it work. There are some things, especially like that, when you absolutely cannot not do that. Okay, I'm done with this part. And now we're gonna be doing some pretty stuff here. Okay, so here's where we are. Right there. And again, you could add other textures to it, but
You can also sew beads onto this. You could sew buttons afterward. This is all a fiber or textile, so it can be further altered and layered upon.
Can you glue things?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Yes, you can.
There are specific glues that you want to use versus Elmer's or hot glue, but absolutely.
Okay, so here we are with this. I probably would take some time to add maybe more things, or at least look at it and see how I feel. But in the meanwhile, the next thing that we're gonna do,
It's pretty amazing for 20-25 minutes.
I know.
Working on it.
I
yeah,
thought that took forever.
it depends. So,
Wow, that's really
Wow.
nice.
and we can make sure that it all fits in there. Gets it all there. Some of these things are not quite the way I'd like them, but nonetheless. I like these little shadow boxes. They're, Shannon, can you do this
Yep.
for me? Thank you.
Got it.
You can get, the one thing about the shadow boxes as opposed to a regular frame is that with the shadow box, it allows you to, your wall can breathe.
Yeah.
And so you wanna, thank you. Can I have that?
Yeah.
So you can frame it if you want, with in a regular frame, but it's ever so much better when you're putting it, when you put it in a shadow box. Cause then that way you can also see the texture.
The key point is you don't want the glass touching the fiber. You want to be able to allow for a little bit of air movement. So even if you have a regular frame, if you put spacers so that the glass is not touching, just because you don't want it to.
Thank you.
It looks really pretty.